you ever been so hungry and there's nothing to eat and you felt like crying? Yes? Or you get so tired and there's no place to sleep, you feel like crying? Hare Krishna. But as far as being separated from Krishna, well, we're okay with that. It's not a big problem. We can deal with it, right? We've been separated for like, a million years. We're used to it. But separated for more than 6 hours from prasadam, it's really difficult. Hare Krishna. So this is a lecture. This is in London, 1971. Before I came here to London, I sent 6 students. Married students. They were only with me for 1 year. And I said to them, you go to London and you try. And they tried their best. And they have created some impression amongst the Londoners. You know, they did, after they were there about a year, they did Rath Yatra. And the headlines of The Guardian, I think it was The Guardian, the main newspaper, says, the Krishnas startle London. Now, can you imagine, after 1 year, you could send that newspaper, back to Prabhupada and say, Prabhupada, look what we did. And when Prabhupada saw that, he was so happy and so excited. Now he's going to go on to explain. So, they tried their best and they have created some impression. Yeah, they created a big impression. And they met George Harrison. That was another big impression. One of my godbrothers came here 40 years ago. He could not do, which means he couldn't do much or couldn't really do anything. He was a sannyasi. But how is it that these boys and girls have done? In other words, what my godbrother, he was a sannyasi, and they're householders, and they're only devotees for a year. So Prabhupada's saying, how? He didn't do much, and they've created this huge impression. How? How these boys and girls have done because they're so sincere. Yes, the sincerity in spiritual life. Sincerity is the first qualification. Should I read that again? Sometimes it takes 3 times to remember something. In spiritual life, sincerity is the first qualification. La viva espiritual, sincerity, primero. Sinceridad es primera cualificación. You understand Spanish? Kind of you can understand. You understand? No? Sinceridad es primera cualificación. Okay, everybody say it together. In spiritual life, sincerity is the first qualification. So, then Prabhupada quotes from the 18th chapter, the qualities of Brahman, and he pulls out the word arjavam. And then he quotes the verse, Satyam Socham Arjavam. Samadhamastapo Socham Shantir Arjavam Evacham. Samadhamastapo Socham Shantir Arjavam Evacham. These are the Brahminical qualifications. One should be very sincere. Now, okay, let me read. One should be very sincere. Duplicity may be a very good qualification for the material world, but duplicity in the spiritual life, is no qualification. Now, here's something interesting. You know the verse? In the 18th chapter, Krishna lists the qualities of all the varnas, and then he comes to the Brahmins. Sama, they're equal. Dhamma, they're sense control. Tapa, they do tapa. Austerity, soch, tapa. Samadhamas tapo socham, they're clean. Shantir arjavam. And Prabhupada, Shantir, peaceful, arjavam, he translates it as honest. But here, he's using the word arjavam as simplicity. So that means simplicity and honesty are the same thing. Lo mismo. Simplificado, what? Simplicidad. Simplicidad. A. Honesty.
Honestidad.
Honesty
Honestidad es lo mismo.
es lo mismo. This is how I learn to speak Spanish. I give lectures and I listen to them and I try and they correct me. Then I go back to America and forget everything. And then I go to Mauritius and I have to speak French and I get completely confused. And I come back to Mexico and start speaking French and Spanish together. Life is really difficult. So, I find this interesting. Arjavam is honesty, and Arjavam is simplicity, and the antonym, or the opposite of simplicity, is duplicity. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it? I guess we're having an English class now. Simplicity, duplicity. So the opposite of simplicity is duplicity. And so duplicity, what does it mean? Dishonesty. And so simplicity means honesty also. And duplicity means dishonesty. And then yesterday, when we were talking about sincerity, we were saying you want to serve Krishna for his pleasure. So duplicity would be you want to serve Krishna for your pleasure. Right? You want to get something. I'll become a devotee and I'll get something from ISKCON. I'll get a position, I'll get money, I'll get this, I'll get that. I'll use Krishna. So that's duplicity. And simplicity is I serve Krishna. So it means honestly, I'm honestly trying to please Krishna. That's what it means. Interesting, right? Arjavam. Remember that word. It means honesty. And now we come up with another lecture a year later. When was this lecture? Yeah, a year later. Prabhupada's talking about the same thing. Arjavam means simplicity. A Brahman is not supposed to be crooked and duplicitous. No, simple. It is said, even the enemy wants to know something from him, he will clearly say, it is this. That is called simplicity. In other words, he won't hide anything, he won't lie. There are occasions when he would lie to protect Krishna's interests, but generally, honesty is a quality of a Brahmin. So when we had the retreat, I have to read you this quote. When we had the retreat, we were talking about self-honesty. Listen to this quote. I don't know who this person is. His name is Fouquet Grevel. And maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maybe that's French. Who knows? But what he said is very interesting. No man was ever so much deceived by another as by himself. In other words, nobody has ever cheated us as much as we've cheated ourselves. No one has ever deceived us as much as we've deceived ourselves. You agree? Yeah. We pretend to be something we're not. Interesting, right? Here's another heavy one. By Fyodor Dostoevsky. Sounds? That's Dostoevsky? He's famous?
Yes.
How do you pronounce his first name?
Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Yes, just like I said. Above all, don't lie to yourself. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point that he cannot distinguish the truth within him. This is really interesting. And this probably has happened to all of us. It said, if you lie long enough, you start to believe it. So if you lie to yourself long enough, you'll forget what the truth is and you'll believe it. Isn't that weird? I have another one. It's even more scary. Hare Krishna. This one's very interesting. You wear a mask for so long, you forget who you were beneath it. Same idea, right? You lie so long, you believe the lie, and you forget what the truth is, so you forget who you were. When you aren't sincere, you need to pretend. Like pretend you're sincere. And by pretending, you end up believing yourself. Like you pretend to be sincere, then you believe that you're sincere when you're not. That's the basic principle of every faith. You know, like you see a lot of people, religious people, who believe they're sincere, and we look at them and we think, you're not religious at all, but they don't understand that. Cunning. You understand the word cunning? Cunning. Cunning. Yeah. Radharani is cunning. Cunning. You understand cunning? Cunning. You get things done. When you're smart, you'll get your way somehow or other. Cunning is the art of concealing our own defects and discovering the weaknesses of others. So,
can you repeat this last one?
Cunning.
Cunning is the art.
Concealing our own defects and discovering the weaknesses of others. So, in other words, you could spend your whole life pretending to be someone you're not, so no one can see your faults, and just focusing on other people's faults. Isn't that interesting? What a wasted life. There's one more, I don't see it. These guys are really smart. This one must be French. André Malraux. M-A-L-R-A-U-X. Anyone heard of him? André Malraux. M-A-L-R-A-U-X. But there's an R after the L. Malraux. Anyway. Man is not what he thinks he is. He is what he hides. Everybody say, wow. Man is not what he thinks he is. He is what he hides. Yeah. Someone said, we're not afraid of who we are, we're afraid of... we're not afraid of who we are, we're afraid of who we could become. That's an interesting one. Okay. We're not afraid of who we are, we're afraid of who we could become. Wow. Another person said, we're not who we are, we're who we think we are. We're not, how did he say it? I can't remember, but it was so esoteric, it was so profound and esoteric, I can't remember how he says it. Okay, so let's go back to what Prabhupada was saying.
I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm what I think you think I am.
I'm not who I think I am. I'm not.
You think
I'm not
who I am.
who you think I am. I am.
What I think you think I am.
I am what you think I am. Very good. You're trying to be what you think I am. Which is okay if that's in relation to your guru, then your guru thinks you're a pure devotee or wants you to be. Okay. So we were just reading. A Brahmin is not supposed to be crooked and duplicitous. Simple. Even the enemy wants to know from him, he will say it is this. This is called simplicity. So as we've just been discussing, honesty with ourselves is probably the most difficult. So here's a lecture. This is a morning walk. Academic means this. They get the degrees, and after that they do all nonsense. That is academic. But this Vedic culture is not like that. He must act. Then it will be okay. It will be all right. The Western culture, the idea is never mind what his private character is. We don't mind. He has passed PhD, so let him become a teacher. This is Western culture. But privately he may be a rascal. It doesn't matter. That is not Brahminical culture. There is no private or public. Antar Bahir. Internally and externally. So that's another definition of honesty. You have the same outside and inside. What the world sees when they see you is what they would see at home. Just like I joke, I'd say, what if I had a video of everything you did last week at home? And I had it right here. Could I show it to everybody? Would that be okay? Well, maybe in Mayapur it would be. Okay, it's the 1 month before you came to Mayapur, and I had a video of what you were doing at home. Can I show it? Would you be embarrassed? Or would you be like, fine? So, of course, the right answer is, I would be fine. But the real answer may be something else. But we should come to the point and say, sure, you can film me all day. What you see at the temple, what you see at home, it's the same. So that's Brahman. And so Prabhupada's giving an example here. In our culture, if you have a PhD, you can become a professor. And you can teach. It doesn't matter what you do in your private life. But Brahman, his private life must be pure. Completely. Right? Samodamastapo socham shantir arjapam. Those qualities. All the time he must. So that's a nice definition of honesty. Honesty means wherever you go, whatever you do, you're always acting like a Brahmin. In the temple, out of the temple, wherever. That's honesty. And if you act Krishna conscious in one situation and not in another, that's dishonesty. That's duality, duplicity, not simplicity. Does that make sense? Okay. So now, do you have any questions on this? Because I'm going to go on to something else. Jai Ishwaku. Yes.
What Prabhupada means about diplomacy? I never understood that.
Diplomacy is the same thing. That you're saying something to fulfill your own agenda. So what you say may be untrue. But you say it because you have an agenda. Now, we have the story of Sanatana Goswami. He was caught in jail. And he had to get out of jail. So he said so many things to the guard. You're just like my uncle, or you're like my father, whatever he said. And then he gave him a good amount of gold. So Prabhupada said he used diplomacy. So you can use diplomacy in Krishna service. But generally people use diplomacy in their own service. You could use dishonesty in Krishna service, but generally we don't. Krishna asked Yudhisthira to lie. So now, here's the question. If Krishna asks you to lie, what do you do? Because you're a Brahmin and you're supposed to be honest. And you've just heard this class. You're supposed to be honest. And now Krishna tells you to lie. What do? You tell Krishna, I can't lie. It's immoral. It's against Brahminical culture. What do?
You're sure it's not our mind that he's speaking with us?
What? No, if he personally told you.
I lie, deeply lie.
Yeah. So if Krishna asks you to lie, then that is the highest degree of morality. Following Krishna's instructions is the highest morality. And if you follow morality and it goes against Krishna's instructions, then forget it. It's not what we're supposed to do. So Yudhisthira was asked to lie by Krishna and he hesitated. And Arjuna was asked to fight by Krishna, and Krishna convinced him in an hour, and then he fought. And Prabhupada said Arjuna was better than Yudhisthira because Yudhisthira hesitated. He didn't want to lie, he was attached to being honest. So here's the point. Although we should be attached to being honest, we can't be so attached that when Krishna asks us to lie, we don't. Then it becomes material, right? Yes? You know that funny story? There was a sannyasi, Prabhupada was preaching to a sannyasi, his disciple. And Prabhupada's program for the sannyasis was 3 days, they stay in one place for 3 days and then they leave. 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, just keep traveling. And the reason is so the sannyasi doesn't become attached, they keep traveling. They have a nice room, nice everything, don't become attached, move. Right? So right after he told this sannyasi, every 3 days you move, he told another sannyasi who he wanted to manage the Vrindavan temple. He told him, you stay in Vrindavan and never leave. Complete opposite instruction. So if you were that second sannyasi and you were smart, you would say, yes, Prabhupada. If you were stupid, you would say, but Prabhupada, you just told that other sannyasi, he can't stay in one place for 3 days. And I don't want to stay here and do this, I want to travel. I don't think he said that, but if you were stupid, you would say that. So your spiritual master says, do this, you do it. Right? And that's the highest morality. So you're sannyasi, you're supposed to travel. Your guru says, don't travel. Then we have this story we were told, I've told before, of a sannyasi who did the whole Prikram of the Ganga. Can you imagine? He walked all the way up to the Gangotri and all the way down to where it hits. Where does the Ganga hit? What's it? Tridani? Is it Tridani? Ganga Sagar or something? It goes all the way down where it hits the ocean. He did the whole thing. And before he went to do it, he asked Bhaktisiddhanta. He was a sannyasi. He went to tell him, I'm going to do Ganga Parikrama. Whole Ganga, I don't know. It took a year. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, don't do it. Because Bhaktisiddhanta was interested in preaching, not doing austerity for the sake of austerity. So anyway, he did it. And when he got back, Bhaktisiddhanta took away his sannyas. So Ganga Parikrama is very good, it's very purifying. Right? If your guru says don't do it, my advice would be don't do it. If you can avoid it. The jackals are applauding my lecture. They're so happy. So inspired. So you have morality, you have Brahminical quality, and then you have satisfying Krishna. So you don't want to do something that's not going to please Krishna in the name of Dharma or morality or Niti Shastra, ethics, and so, that would be foolish, right? Yes? You still awake? Yes? Da. Si. ¿Tiene sentido?
Sí.
Pravda. Shuddha. What other language do you know? Italian? See? Lithuanian? Tape? Oh, it's the same in same in Polish. Tape. And top the tape. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this topic? Yes.
I know it was touched upon during the retreat, but could you once again explain what is the difference between being honest and just being so honest that you don't care about the feelings of others, where you just like try to avoid hurting people by your selfishness, or where you're just being,
You mean you're so straightforward?
yeah,
You tell everybody exactly what you feel?
you just act the way you are without even trying to be less selfish, you know, because you're so honest. And where you're trying not to bother others, and thus you're kind of being
You're not trying to...
hiding your true.
You're not trying... Prabhu, I'm just fallen, and I'm not going to pretend to not be fallen. That's a very good question. I would suggest you pretend your best to not be fallen. What the point is, that would be an amazingly classical excuse. Why don't you go to the temple? I don't want to pretend. I'm not really Krishna conscious. And I have to be real with myself. And I don't feel like going, so I have to be real. I have to be honest. And that is honestly how I feel. I have to be honest with myself. I honestly don't want to go. And I'm going to let everybody honestly know that I don't like going to the temple. In fact, I don't even like devotees. And I'm going to let everyone honestly know that I don't like you. Okay, that's going too far. What I would say is, you need to be honest with yourself that you feel like that. But because you're given an instruction to not act that way, the highest sense of honesty would be to act according to that higher instruction. Without pretending to be Krishna conscious, knowing that I'm not, and aware that I have these other desires, but adhering to the instruction. I set my alarm clock for 4 o'clock. And a lot of times I go to bed late. 4 o'clock's not that early, unless you go to bed late. And sometimes it goes off, and I'm really upset. Because I'm tired, I need to rest more. I honestly need to rest more, and I'm so honest with myself that I know I need to rest more. But I'm honest to the order of my guru, so I get up because he wanted me to. So, but I'm not pretending, and then I show up in the temple, and I'm not pretending. Look at it, I'm the best devotee. I come to the temple every morning, and so many devotees don't. I'm better than them. That would be where you get sidetracked. But I honestly admit, sometimes if I go to bed late, I don't want to get up. Okay, that's being honest. Yes?
But what if some sort of a conflict with the other person, or you got offended, and you know that I'm really offended, I might show it and have this discussion, or I might act as if I'm not offended because I don't want to bother that other person, and because I know that devoted people, they don't get offended. So what do I do in this case?
It will depend on various factors. Yeah. It depends how you want to process it, because it may be bad for the relationship to hide that. And it may be bad for the relationship if you don't hide it. So it depends what's most important for you. Expressing yourself or keeping the relationship alive and well. But I would think first first point is, at least you admit to yourself that you were offended, that you can meditate on that. Maybe I shouldn't have been offended. Right? So you can meditate on that and say, okay, I was offended by so-and-so. And then you want to process it. That would be a good place to start. Otherwise you become, some people, like whatever they feel, they just say it. You ever met someone like that? There's like no barriers, just whatever they feel, they say it, and it's hard to be around those people. They're too honest. Actually, they're obnoxious. I wouldn't call it honesty, I would call it being obnoxious. And then you have Vaishnava etiquette also. So it would be improper to be pointing out everyone's fault just because you want to be honest. Don't you think?
Yes, I agree. There's certainly middle way. I'm just trying to find this way. This middle
Well,
way in
if you're
situations which really hurt me.
Yeah. Well, one thing you could do is let's say someone hurt you. You may choose to distance yourself. You're honest about it. You're not pretending to say, okay, I shouldn't be hurt, but I was hurt, and I'm honest with myself. I admit it. Okay, maybe if I were Krishna conscious, I wouldn't be hurt, but I am. So the next thing is now, do I want to discuss that with a person? Is it going to make it worse? Do I want to distance myself from the person? So there's some etiquette there. And if I want to discuss it with a person, then I'll have to do it respectfully. And speak the truth, but speak sweetly. That's Bhagavad Gita. And that's, many of our Shastras say that. Speak the truth, but speak it sweetly. Pleasingly. So that's the austerity. Don't speak in a way that disturbs people, but you want to be truthful. But you have to be careful, because some people don't like truth. And if you're truthful with some people, they'll get upset. You have experience?
Of course, I also guess.
But you know that statement, if you give a fool good advice, they'll become angry? So, am I honest with you, and I tell you all the things I don't like about you, would that be the best thing for you? Probably not. So then I have to think, well, how can I tell you? And I have to think of the things that are wrong, is it really important? Are any of them important? Like if I don't tell you, will your life go on fairly well anyway? You know, the one problem is that I've seen being in India and being around Indians is that, and also Asian cultures, the Western culture tends to be more, we try to be more equal. So we feel like being honest is really important with everybody. Higher, lower, friends. But in a Vaishnava culture, you have to respect some boundaries according to a person's position. So sometimes you let a superior do something, maybe wasn't the best thing, you just don't say anything because they're superior. And it wouldn't be right to call them out. In the perfect world, it would be right. You'd want to discuss it. But at the same time, there are principles of Vaishnava etiquette, and you don't want to transgress those. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I have to think it through. I mean, my question, maybe I didn't formulate it well enough.
Okay, ask it again.
If I have to think it through.
You were also asking in terms of people doing that to you as well.
No,
right?
just that I usually thought that humility is something I should strive for, so in each situation I was trying to act humble in a like in a Christian way, and then I just realized that it was a lie, basically.
Yeah,
I didn't
okay.
feel humble
Yeah.
inside me, and I'm
Yeah.
just not sure. Sometimes I'm doing that for the sake of other person, like
Yeah.
as my service to God, that
Yeah,
I'm being
yeah.
humble and trying to like defeat
Yeah.
my own bad inclinations,
Yeah.
to get offended, to get angry, etc.
Well, that's good.
So I'm not sure when it's service and when it's just a pretension.
Well, the problem is that becoming humble is basically synonymous with developing love of Krishna. So, the way Prabhupada explained the problem is, I should act humbly, but you know it's artificial. But the action is good, as long as you know it's artificial. And you know that actually I'm not really humble, but I know this is the best way to behave. The problem is when you act humbly and you're not, and you think you are humble because you're acting humble. That's the dishonesty. I mean, acting in a humble way is what we're all supposed to do.
Even though we don't always feel
Yeah.
really humble
Yeah.
inside, it's still
Yeah,
better
yeah.
to behave humble.
Well, yeah, because I can give a more universal answer. There's so many things we don't feel. You know, let's use another example. Like, you say something to me, and I get so angry I feel like slapping you in the face. And you say, Mahatma Prabhu, I know you feel like slapping me in the face, but you shouldn't do it. It's not right. And I say, I know, but I have to be honest. I feel like slapping you, and I don't want to. Yeah, so then it's obvious. I have to control myself. But you apply that to anything. So, you know, we had talked about this, I think, a week or two ago, about being real, and how being real sometimes gets us into trouble. Prabhu, why don't you come to the temple? I'm just being real. I'm not attractive. I'm just being real. Prabhu, why are you chanting your rounds? I'm just being real. I'm not attractive. So, and we were joking. We were saying, in a philosophical context, that's not being real. That's being unreal. That's being in illusion. Because what's real? The Hare Krishna mantra is real, right? Isn't it? So if you chant Hare Krishna, that's real. And if you don't feel like chanting, that's illusion. So to say, I have to be real, there is validity to it, but it can work against you. Right? Is that getting more clear? Yeah. So,
I just sometimes feel that if I act too humble, then I just, how do you say it?
you'll get
I
taken
provoke
advantage.
other people
How?
to get more obnoxious or something
How?
by not protecting my boundaries.
Yeah.
So I also have to use my common sense to know
Yeah,
where I
yeah,
have to
yeah.
act humble and
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I shouldn't.
Well, you answered the question. You have to protect your boundaries. So humble doesn't mean letting people exploit you or destroy you. We have a problem. We have many problems, but this is one problem. That if I'm your authority, then theoretically you have to do what I say. And if you don't, I can intimidate you. Say, you have to be humble, and you're not being humble. And I make you feel bad. So that's dangerous. And in a situation like that, you would have to say, I have boundaries, I can't do this, I'm not able to do this. That's okay. But the principle behind everything we do in Krishna consciousness is what is going to help me become Krishna conscious. I'll give you an example. This is such an interesting example. I don't know if I'll get thrown out of this con for giving it. Just wanted to get your attention. Now you want to hear it, right? No, it's not that bad. But someone may question, why did I give this instruction? So, What planet did this come from? What's apples and ginger or what? Cinnamon?
Yes. In your
You could make $1 million selling this because everyone would get addicted. Sitting on a gold mine. Crazy. Ginger or mint,
Honey.
honey. What else? That's all?
sure.
That's all.
Ah, yeah.
Uh,
Mint?
Mint.
peppermint.
Whoa. When you come up for prasadam, put your hand out. Pour some in. This is crazy. It's in here? What was I saying?
You were about to give some example.
Oh yeah, so this example, I will get fired from my job in this way. So this devotee came up to me. She's married and she says, like, all my life I would dance, you know, just normal dance, boys and girls dancing. And I guess she studied dance. It was really important for her. And she said, now that I'm a devotee, I stop dancing, but I have this need and I go crazy if I don't dance. And the kind of dance she does, she has to dance with a man, but her husband doesn't want to do it. So she has to dance, and if she doesn't dance with him, she's going to dance with another man. So what do you think I told her husband? Dance with your wife. And then she said, but this dancing is Maya. And I said, I know, but dancing with another man, you're going to dance anyway, and dancing with another man is more Maya than dancing with your husband. Right? So my point was, I'm analyzing the situation, and basically she's saying, I can't stop dancing, and you can't dance this dance alone. You have to dance with a man. Well, yeah. You have to dance with a man. And she's going to do it. And if her husband doesn't do it, she's going to dance with another man. So then I thought, well, at least they'll spend more time together. So my point was, that's not Krishna conscious, right? But relative to the options, it's more Krishna conscious than the option. Right? I once, years ago, like 20 years ago, some parents brought me to their home. They said, the teenage boys, they have a band and they want you to hear it and encourage them. So we go there, you know. Then every like 3 minutes, Krishna, Krishna. So at least they said Krishna. There's some Krishna there. Right? So that's the idea. They could just be no Krishna. So at least they got some Krishna. Some Krishna is better than no Krishna. So the idea is they're going to do it anyway. Right? But at least they said Krishna, Krishna. Govinda, Govinda. Every once in a while. So I would say that's being real, is what will help you. So you have to analyze your situation and your feelings and determine what would be a way that is the best way for you to act to protect yourself and the best way for the devotees you're interacting with. And so that's why I can't specifically answer the question, because you're going to have to figure out. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
But remember, when we're trying to be humble, it's not that we're trying to be humble, we're trying to act humbly. Because humility is actually a byproduct of prema, this high level of humility. So as we advance, we'll get a little more humble in our attitude, but the main thing is to act that way, even if you don't feel it. And that is what is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti basically means, to act in the right way even if you don't feel it. And that would be the definition of being real. At least one definition of being real is to do the right thing even if you don't feel it. When we say I have to be real, it means we can't do something that we can't maintain. It's too artificial for us. It's like, I can't do this. It's not real. I'll always come back to this. Right? You know, Satsrup Maharaj, he's written so many books. He's always writing. And if Prabhupada told him, don't write books, what do you think he'd say? He'd say, Prabhupada, I always write. I wake up early in the morning, I write. I can't stop writing. That's being real. That's just who he is. Of course, Prabhupada never said that. So, if there's something we can't do, and we're artificially pushing ourselves, then it's not being real. Because real means you can do it steadily. You won't be a yo-yo. And then you gradually, from steady, you go up. Also, the other point of not being real is to think that you're more advanced than you are. And in fact, to even think you're a devotee is dangerous. Did you know that? Even to think that I'm actually a devotee, that's not real. But I'm trying to be.
But the other day you said that we should accept it
Yeah, I
as
know.
our identity.
I know I do. You caught me. By constitution, I'm a devotee. That's my nature. I cannot not be a devotee. It's my nature. I'm eternal servant of Krishna. But as a devotee advances, he never thinks I'm a devotee. That's what, you know. So I was saying, because sometimes Maya is so strong, we have to remember that being a devotee is our identity. That's who we are. But in higher stages, then we don't think. So that protects you. That's being real. Okay, my spiritual master said, get up in the morning, go to the temple, chant your rounds. So I do that. So the problem is, because I do it every day, I think I'm a great devotee because I do this. That's the problem. So it's not artificial to do it per se. It's good that you do it, even if it is artificial, so-called. But as long as you don't become proud because you're doing it. So you're okay. So you're acting humbly, but you don't feel humble. But as long as you're aware that I'm trying to act humble, but I don't feel that I'm humble, then that's real. Because you're aware of what's actually happening. But you start thinking, I'm humble, then you're in trouble. That's not real.
So the most important point is just to be real with yourself, and you can act differently.
Be real, know what's going on, and then you decide in terms of relationships. Yeah. And if someone is treating you in a way that is not healthy for you, you have to either stand back or let them know that I can't, this is not good for me, it's not healthy. And it has to be done nicely. You know, we're all supposed to be surrendered, but some things are difficult to do. And sometimes we have to let our authorities know that this is hard for me. I could do this, but this is really hard. That's also being real. I try to do this, I surrender to it, I should do it, I know I should. But I find it difficult to be inspired doing this. I told my story many times, my confession. I was temple president 3 times, a Sankirtan leader of several temples. There's a lot of management. I don't like to manage. And this is amazing. I think up until the time I married, I never stayed in a place for more than 2 years. It was almost like 2 years on the dot I would go, because I was managing and I couldn't be stable managing because I didn't like it. Then when I started teaching, I stabilized and I stayed in the same place since 2003. That was the first time I stayed in one place as a devotee more than 2 years. If you track my schedule, like you say, where did you join? I joined here, then I went here, then I went here, then I went here, then I went here. Then I went here. You get dizzy because it's every 2 years. Because I was managing. When I stopped managing and was full-time engaged in teaching, then I stabilized. So, I think we can all relate to that. It's something that is, we just recognize this will be best for me. It will stabilize me. Or like getting married. Some people realize, I need to get married, it'll stabilize me. I'm not stable, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm doing a different service every 3 months. A lot of times it's just, a lot of times people say, should I go here, should I do this? And a lot of times I say, you should just get married. That's why you're so, for some. If someone's stable and they're not married, I wouldn't say that. But for some people, they're just unstable in their ashram. So Varna ashram, do what's stabilizing. That's very important. So it's clear? You're good? Now she's going to go back to Estonia and let all the leaders know how she feels. And she's going to write me a letter. I did what you said and I got in trouble. Alright, just if you get in trouble, just tell them I told you to say it. You can blame me. And they can write me. Hare Krishna. Anything else on this? Yes.
Regarding being humble, so I noticed that when we are humble, and then even amongst devotees, sometimes we are in a very vulnerable position where people take advantage, men particularly, take advantage of us, and then we go tell others. People don't believe that this Prabhu could be like this. And and then I noticed that I go to the other extreme, trying to act smart and act very intelligent and look, I'm from the city and don't mess up with me, and completely stop being humble and try to be this modern city girl and showing to them that okay, don't mess up with me, I'm not a villager, okay? And how do we? And then we get blasted for that too, like she's characterless or something. How do we manage this,
Who's blasting you, men or women?
Everyone.
You need some new friends, I think. No, I would say there's something deeper than that. Because there's a saying, you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. So if there's some lack of respect for yourself, people pick up on that. And the people who like to disrespect you can see that. Here's a target. I can this propensity I have to put people down, she's a good one. So I don't think it's actually a lack of humility, or I don't think it's because of humility they're doing it. I would say probably more due to lack of self-respect. And if the lack of self-respect is there, then probably that's why it doesn't work when you try to be arrogant, because they can see through it. Generally, we mistake humility for being setting ourselves up for being exploited. But look how lion-like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was, and Prabhupada was. At times, very lion-like. But we wouldn't say they weren't humble. So, humility is the attitude that I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm insignificant servant of Krishna. But this insignificant servant of Krishna could go out and conquer the world and call people rascals and fools, and call professors fools and scientists fools. This humble servant could do that. And while he's doing it, he's still remaining in a humble mood. So it's the attitude more than the action. Sometimes the action doesn't look humble. I was in a lecture, and Prabhupada said, last night I spoke to a scientist and I called him a demon. And then Prabhupada started laughing and said, and he accepted. And then Prabhupada said, I can do that. You cannot do that. You know, founder Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement, old enough to be this man's father, he can do it. But we would never say Prabhupada wasn't humble. Out of humility, he was calling this man a rascal. So you can meditate on that for a while. Out of humility, Arjuna was shooting arrows. Out of humility, Bhaktisiddhanta was defeating Mayapur. Humility means, I'm a humble servant of Krishna, you're offending Krishna, I will defend him. And I will be loud and strong because I'm humble. Because I'm humbly serving Krishna, so I can be loud and strong. I can shoot arrows also. What did Prabhupada say in the Gita? Bold and daring. The devotee is bold and daring. So I think sometimes we just misunderstand or misdefine humility to be something that it isn't. When actually we're just being weak, or we're lacking self-respect, and then people are picking up on that.
So the actions doesn't bring the desired results.
If we don't change the consciousness, no. Well, I think in Yana's question, this idea that we should be tolerant, but it's not healthy to tolerate abuse. So if someone's abusing you in some way and you're tolerating it, that may not be real for you. You might think, well, a Vaisnava should tolerate, and that's right. But for you, it may degrade you, it may upset you, it may make you angry, resentful. And then you may go around offending that devotee, because you're not on that level yet, where you can tolerate it. So you have to stop it. Leave, or distance yourself, or in some way stop them from doing it, to protect your people. Like this example I was given a few days back. This lady writes a letter to Prabhupada and said, I met your devotees and they were not very nice. They didn't treat me well. And Prabhupada said they're just trying to protect themselves because they're young devotees, so they're a little repulsed by the material world, and that's how they protect themselves. So sometimes you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself. You know, sometimes we see brahmacharis and when they're around women, they're a bit repulsed. That's what they're doing because of the attraction. They're just trying to protect themselves. It's not mature, but at least they're trying to protect themselves. So you have to decide how to protect yourself. Then one time Prabhupada said something funny. You know, Vaishnava philosophy states that if someone harms you, you shouldn't defend yourself, but if someone harms another devotee, you should defend them. So Prabhupada said, if someone is offending a devotee, he said, forget this Trinadapi Sunichina and defend that devotee. which means could mean physically defend, put it down, defend it. And so, and we saw that with Lord Chaitanya when he was coming to kill Jagat Madhai because they had offended Nityananda. And Lord Chaitanya is teaching Trinadapi Sunichina, and now he's coming to kill Jagat Madhai. And then you might say, how is that humility? Because he's protecting his devotee out of love. And ultimately, humility is how you feel in relation to other living entities in Krishna, how you see yourself. So you may feel I'm the most humble servant of Krishna, but in certain situations I have to be very bold and maybe critical of what people are doing. But it doesn't mean I'm not humble. Because, sometimes people would complain, and Prabhupada is calling people fools, rascals, mudha. And the people would say, why are you calling people asses? This is not good, it's not right. Prabhupada said, I am not calling. Krishna is calling, and I'm repeating what Krishna says. So that's his humility. He's repeating what Krishna says. And he's calling people asses. Well, it doesn't seem like a humble person would call people asses, would it? But because he's repeating Krishna's words, that means he's humble. Bottom line, protect yourself. Protect your creeper. You have this little creeper, don't let it get snuffed out because somebody bullies you. Protect it. As we become more Krishna conscious, we become more tolerant. And these things won't bother us as much. But if they do bother you, if they do upset you, at least be honest that it's because I'm not more advanced that they bother me, but I have to deal with it now. That flower just fell out of my hand. And it was for you. And this one's for you. This is such an interesting question. Because you have two things going on. What you should do, what you know you should do, and what you're able to do without crashing. Because if you try to do what you should do and you crash, what's the point? Now you're worse off than before you tried it out. Somebody's supposed to get a flower, but I don't know.
Tea maker. Tea maker.
Tea maker. Oh yeah, tea maker. So, your whole life you're going to go through this is what I should do, and this is what I can do, and if I try, to jump 8 feet in the air, it's not going to happen. So I have to jump, 4 feet. I can jump 4 feet. Okay, start with 4. Work your way up. And I know the goal is 8, but I can't do it. But I want to do it. I'm trying to do it. So that's what we have to do. And so the principle is, what's going to help you get closer to Krishna? Do that. And that's perfect. Just this one instruction can answer hundreds of questions. Do what's best for your Krishna. Maharaj, should I do this? Should I do that? I was thinking this, thinking that, but what if this, what if that? If this happens, I do this, and then my guru says this, and my temple president says that. You don't drive yourself totally nuts. So, think in terms of what would be the best thing for my spiritual life. That's where you have to start.
Yeah, I once told that to myself, to protect my bhakti, I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm being a certain way, it's okay. I just told that to myself.
Start there and work to improve from there. And accept it. Don't give in to your weaknesses, but give in to what, how should we say it? To what is your inherent nature, so that the main thing is to be steady. So what's favorable for Krishna consciousness and from what position you can be steady? Because if you're steady, you'll make advancement. If you're not steady, you won't.
Now, over the period, I noticed that we learn to anyway set boundaries
Yes.
in a household way.
Yeah. Prabhu, I'm humbly setting boundaries. Could you leave right now? Accept my most humblest respects. Could I ask a favor of you? Could you get out of here? I'm finding your presence not helpful for my spiritual. No. There's etiquette. So we want to follow Vaisnava etiquette. That's very important. So you have to learn how to deal with how you feel, what you need, what's the right thing for you, the right way to apply that in Krishna consciousness. You consider all these things. And then you'll do much better in Krishna consciousness. You're trying to achieve something that's impossible. You'll drive yourself crazy. And you won't be able to achieve it anyway. And if you try, you'll just slip and fall. And you'll fall back to that level that you should have gone to in the first place. Right? The last thing I want to say, and go back to your question, like you said, sometimes if someone criticizes you, you get upset, or what did you say?
It just was my idea from that spiritual and esoteric literature that God wants me to always tolerate things, that it is my lesson.
Oh, yeah,
That is why I was kind of over-tolerating
Yeah,
things,
okay.
over being
All right.
over-humble, like trying
Yeah.
to be humble when I shouldn't.
Okay, so, and then when there's something you can't tolerate, then you want to kind of look at that and try to understand why you can't tolerate it. But you're honest about the fact you can't tolerate it. You know that, and it's a problem. But then, inspect it. Why can't I? How could I be better? So you're doing two things at once. You're acknowledging that this is a weakness, but you're also looking into it. Like, why am I intolerant? Is there a way that I could, like we said in the workshop, is there a way I can change the rules so I could be able to tolerate it? But again, don't tolerate anything that's destructive on any level, physical, emotional, or spiritual.
But I've heard stories, for example, a woman would have a husband who is maybe slightly abusive or maybe like has addiction, and instead of leaving him as all materialistic psychologists would probably suggest, she decides to like stay and because it's her karma, etc., and divorce, like one shouldn't divorce their spouse, and she prays a lot, and he actually does change. I know sometimes people wouldn't change, but sometimes they do because she just kind of burns out that.
As long as he changes before he destroys you. That would be my answer.
So how do you know? Do you have to stay and try to like defeat the situation?
Well,
prayer,
this is like an interesting question, because actually according to Shastra, you don't have to stay with him. Even Manu Samhita says there's like qualifications for husband or wife. And then when they cross the line, there's no sin in separating.
It's the dharma of the husband to protect the wife.
And if he doesn't protect
If he
her.
doesn't, it's adharma.
This is what I find a bit confusing because, like, I was listening to some preachers, and this is not a situation that has happened to me previously, but just an example. And they say that maybe you sometimes should stay in a situation which is hard for you and just pray, because this way you will help both yourself, like, to kind of burn out that karma which caused you, which caused the situation, and also that other person.
Yeah, but just don't destroy yourself in the process. Because many women have been destroyed in that process. So, the idea of that instruction is that you would actually benefit, you can tolerate it, and your husband would benefit. But there are many cases when he doesn't benefit and you don't benefit. He gets worse because you tolerate it. That also.
But how in the beginning can you actually understand?
How in the beginning? Don't marry him in the first place. If he's like,
Yeah, but if it's your parent or like situation you can't really get out easily when you're a child and something like that, and you just
Or if it's your parents,
Yeah.
oh, that's a different situation. As a child, that's difficult. But when you're an adult, then you just have to learn to, it's the same principle. That any situation, you want to be able to tolerate as best you can. But there's a certain point when tolerating actually becomes degrading and harmful. So you have to know that point where it becomes harmful, and then sticking it out there, you start destroying yourself. So in the name of doing the right thing, you end up completely dysfunctional, or somewhat dysfunctional. So that doesn't make sense, right?
I once had this, I do not know if it is the right realization or not. I once had this realization that what she said, you're trying to be in the relationship and trying to burn out, you get purified, burn out karma. So we stay, I had this realization that Krishna anyways let me stay as long as I'm supposed to stay. And then at some point that, he gives this intuition, Krishna makes us feel or gives this intuition that you're done with it, and now you don't repeat the pattern birth after birth.
Yeah.
Now it's time to liberate from that.
I mean, that could be. It could also be a karmic thing you just had to go through. But generally what I've seen is women stay in abusive relationships past the point, to a point where it starts to hurt them, degrade them. It's Kali Yuga. Karma is difficult to understand, because if you look at people's karma today, you would think it's a lot worse than it was in the last age. But it may be indicative of the age that everybody is, if you're around in Kali Yuga, you'll suffer. I think one of the signs of Kali Yuga is that women aren't protected, they're exploited. So I would say if I were a woman, I'd be careful that I wouldn't get exploited, because it's not going to help me. Okay. She's
it's about these things of abuse, but in another way, because when someone is doing to you an abuse, and maybe another devotee more expensive than you, tell you, oh, you have to stay there because you are purified. This is purification.
yes.
Yeah. And I know I give an answer to this is like because they say, this is your karma, right? And then yeah, it's my karma maybe to understand that it's wrong and change and save the people that coming after me. There is also this. There was like a method with this, because normally I think also they had some abuse. And they wasn't able to go out of this abuse, and they accept to be abused, and then they can be good guides for other people, because they didn't have help for these things. So,
Well, just understand, people who have been abused are usually looking for other people to abuse. And if you get in the way, they'll abuse you if you let them. So just be careful. And if you know anybody like that, then try to help them. The example, in your question, the example is sometimes given that, no, see, this is different. The example is given of Prabhupada's sister's husband. He was a drunkard. And I think maybe he made it, and she stayed with him. But he wasn't abusing, as far as I know, he wasn't abusing her. That's different. Okay, my husband's a drunkard. I'll just be a good wife, and someday because I'm a good wife, he'll become sober, and that's what happens. But that's different than being abused. Because if you're being abused, you'll be damaged.
Actually, I'm sorry, I think when I was referring to our preachers, I think the situations they met are also when there is no like abuse, just a drunkard husband.
Yeah.
And one example when it was actually like a situation threatening to somebody's life, that woman, she didn't have any option to leave. She had nowhere to go, so she just had to stay with her grown-up son and husband who were abusing her, and she prayed a lot and they actually changed, but she had no other option because she was living in a village, no money.
Right.
So it's a different.
Yeah, all you can do is pray.
I didn't know that her sister's husband was just a drunkard and not abusive. It was one Mataji here was telling other women, that look, she stayed, and you're also supposed to stay. Otherwise you're not a nice woman.
I think that was imagined that he was an abuser. I don't remember ever hearing that.
This Mataji, she's a senior Mataji, she was using this to tell other women that
Everyone
you're not
uses
good,
that's the classic example that we use, and it's true that a devoted wife can purify her husband if you can do it. But again, it goes back to the same point. If you're able to do it and you can do it, then you can be healthy in that situation and maintain your Krishna consciousness and be dharmic that way. Yeah, okay, then it may work well. But if you can't, then what? You're going to go to hell being dharmic. That's a paradox. Well, time is up. I think this discussion could go on for a few more yugas. So, I don't know if it's relevant to everybody, but maybe some of us. Okay, so we'll end class here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.